Hello and welcome back, if you've been here before. Today I wanted to go through 10 vinyl myths that have been sort of like universally admitted just because some expert or connoisseur said it was so, and people started parrot-like repeating this till they think it's true. Sad thing is, to me, that they don't think for themselves, and that might lead to frustration because they spend lots of money on expensive issues and reissues, and maybe they're not to their taste, or they don't sound what they thought they sounded like. Right, number one. Stereo sounds better than mono, mono sounds better than stereo. This is absolutely false. Right? Mono sounds better when the record was mixed and was meant to be played in mono, right, on mono gear. And stereo sounds better the other way around. The thing is, there was a time in the late 50s when stereo started, and during the 60s when companies used mono recordings and turned them into false stereo, fake stereo, electronically processed stereo, and they sounded awful. So my advice here to you is buy mono records when that record was meant to be played in mono. Buy stereo records when that's not the case. Number two. Earlier stampers always sound the best. Now, this is a bit difficult to tackle. First stampers should sound the best. They come from the first mother, and they were the first records to be made. But you must remember that a stamper can press about 10,000 records. So you might get one on the top of the batch or one on the bottom, and the one on the bottom, unfortunately, is not going to sound like the hot stamper. On top of that, when you get the second stamper, the first fresh pressed records from the second batch might sound better than the last ones from the first pressing. Most likely you will get something in the middle, right? It is very unlikely that you get hot stamper number 1 or that you get record number 9,500. You might get somewhere in the middle. So take that with a grain of salt. Early stampers should sound better, right? Provided that they're not bottom of the barrel, right? As you will never know that, you have to play the record and decide for yourself. Number 3. Cutting and mastering is done by the same person. No. Before 1970s, mastering engineers and cutting engineers were employees of record companies. They were just someone else in the process of manufacturing the records, and that was their job. Right? Nobody paid too much attention to that until the 1970s. So usually, let's get the Beatles case, for example. Records were mastered, and once they were mastered, they were sent to Harry Moss, who was the cutting engineer, except for Abbey Road, and he made his equalizing choices and cut the record. In the early 70s, when mastering engineers became popular and they left their signature on the runner grooves of the record, people paid more attention to what person was doing the job. Now, these people used to master and cut the records themselves, which makes a lot of sense, right? They made their equalizing choices first, and once they've made them, Well, they proceeded onto cutting the album. It is not, I mean, a mix is not done the same way by two different cutting engineers. So you must know, when you buy an album, you must know whether it was mixed and cut by the same person, whether it was mixed and mastered by somebody and then cut by somebody else, and then decide for yourself which one you like the best. Right. Number 4. Original vinyl is made from original master tapes. This is usually true. A band records an album, a master tape is made, then copies from the master tapes are made, and they use the original master tape to cut the vinyl. But this is not universally true. Sometimes some artists, some bands, decide that they don't want to leave their precious master tapes to be used so freely, and they keep the original to themselves. So companies have to use copy tapes, or first generation. I'm thinking of people like Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder keeps his master tapes under lock and key. So far, we only know that Innovations was made from the original master tape, but not the rest of his output. It was made from copies, because he kept the original masters to himself. That is the case with some other artists and some other bands, right? So don't believe that every artist lends his original master tape copy to be cut. Number 5. Flat transfers sound the best. Now, this is something that you can read very often. Oh, this is a flat transfer, so it's going to sound great. That is certainly not true. That's why we have sound engineers. That's why we have cutting engineers and mastering engineers, right? Mastering engineers have to do their job, right? Which is deciding how to cut the record and make it sound the best. They decide whether to boost a little bit of the bass or the sax, whether it needs high end or it needs more low end, and make choices. And these choices are very important as to how the vinyl sounds like in the end. A flat transfer can be okay if nothing needs to be done to the recording, if it's absolutely perfect. But 99% of the times, that is not the case. So it is much better to have a record mastered by a good mastering engineer that that knows his trade and knows what he's doing. Number 6. Vinyl or analog sounds better than digital, and digital sounds better than analog. This has been food for debate for decades, right? Especially started in the early 80s when they tried to convince us that the CD sounded better than vinyl, and then in the 21st century when they tried to convince us of the opposite, that the vinyl sounds better than CD. So many hours wasted, so many silly discussions, so much bubble about this topic. Vinyl doesn't sound better than CD and the other way around. They sound different. So you have to take each of them for what they are. Vinyl has its advantages and digital has its own advantages. I like both. I like vinyl and I like CDs. Now, all things being equal, I prefer vinyl. But to me, the important thing here is the mastering. A good master CD is going to sound better than a bad mastered vinyl. That's obvious. And the other way around. Vinyl has its flaws. The ticks, the pops, the inner groove distortions. But it has its strong points too, which is a warmer presence caused by a slight distortion, a better 3D image or sound stage. But you have to treat them like babies and very carefully, store them carefully and take good care of them. On the other hand, CD has no problem with that, right? It's perfectly quiet. You can skip tracks, which is very useful. But to me, the CD response or the SACD response is flatter, right? The 3D image is not as good as on vinyl. But that is when all things considered, right, are basically the same. If not, what I would recommend to you is to go for the best mastering. Number 7. Japanese pressings sound the best. Now, this is downright false. There are the odd Japanese albums which sound excellent, and I'm thinking of the Japanese preludes of Abbey Road or the CBS Sony Pink Floyd The Wall. So you can pick, sort of cherry pick one or the other here and there. But as a rule of thumb, Japanese mastering is very bright and lacks low end. 99% of their recordings are like that. They're not very nice to Western ears. And I don't know why that happens. I mean, it might be Japanese tradition, it might be the way they want their albums to sound like, or maybe they just don't want to bother the next door neighbor with huge low end. However it may be aware that they're usually bright and that you're much better off with European, American or UK pressings. What the Japanese do, what they're excellent at, is the artifact. They use very sturdy cardboard, very bright, very glossy, very glossy pictures. You get the OB with information, I don't know what that is, and wonderful gatefolds, right? And the records are usually made from super vinyl, top quality, right? Absolutely top quality, and they're really, really quiet indeed, right? So they're very nice to have on your shelves. But one thing is the artifact, which is excellent, and Japanese sellers are really reliable and efficient. And something else is the mastering. Number 8. With modern technology, quality control has improved. Unfortunately not. I've got thousands of albums starting from the 50s, 60s, 70s to modern regions from the day before yesterday. The important thing about these is that quality control is sadly not as good today as it was in the past decade. You can buy an album, 180 gram, play it a couple of times, 3 times, and you start getting ticks and pops. Sometimes they're off-center, sometimes they're warped. Most people complain about returning albums because they have flaws of any kind. And to tell you the truth, that very rarely happened when I first started buying vinyl in the 1970s. I don't remember as a teenager or as a young man any off-center album. I don't remember any warped vinyl. I've had albums that played to death for years, and they're still awesome, right? I'll give you an example, right? Here is Jethro Tull's Benefit. This is a mid-70s reissue by Porky that I bought back in the day, well, a couple of years later, in 1977. I can tell you, I can assure that I've played this album hundreds of times. And I played it before doing this video, and it still sounds great after all this time. There's only the odd tick or the odd crackle in between songs, and the rest of the album is absolutely near mint. On the other hand, just to give you an example, these Miles Davis Lift to the Scaffold, amazing album, amazing music. 180 grams, it's a 10 inches record. I paid a lot for it. I've played it 3 times, I think. Clean it, use the okey-dokey. And after 3 or 4 times, I started to get ticks galore. And it even pops, right? It's so depressing because it's a limited edition, cut by Ray Stafford Air Mastering, pressed by Palace in Germany, so everything should be top notch. The truth, sadly, is that it is. Number 9. Vinyl degrades early. As I said before, not true. And not only with this example, right? I've got hundreds of records from the days when I was a teenager, and I only remember one album. It was Supertramp's Crown of the Century that became worn out. But I must have played that album 200 times before that happened. And it was in the days when I was young and foolish and didn't take proper care of my records, didn't clean my stylers, left them lying around all over the room, and even so, it took a lot of mishandling from me to make that happen. No, if you take care of your records, if you clean them properly, if you clean your stylus, records, make sure they're going to outlive you. Number 10. 180 gram records sound better than regular ones. Absolutely not. What's important about vinyl is the purity of the component. If they're made from very good vinyl, like Japanese pressings, they're going to be quiet and they're not going to get any ticks and pops, right? But it doesn't matter whether they are 180 grams if at the end the vinyl, if at the end the vinyl was not made from top-notch quality stuff and starts getting ticks and pops and even warping. Before this vinyl craze, this recent vinyl craze, nobody cared about how much a record weighed. Whether it was 140 grams, 110 grams. What we knew back in the day, it was that before oil crisis, this 1973, vinyl was pressed in thick slabs and lasted very long. You can think of Beatles or Stones records or King's records that I've bought in VG condition, VG plus condition, and they still play great because the vinyl was top quality. After 1973, things started going down, right, a little bit, but you get hundreds and thousands of records on 110 grams that sound great. Most vinyl reissues nowadays leave a lot to to be desired. It's so depressing when you pay for an item and after 3 or 4 spins it starts causing trouble and you have to return it or ask for your money back, etc. Right? So to me that's more of a seller's gimmick, right? To attract customers. You must decide for yourself. Okay, so that's all for today. Please leave your comments. What's your experience with this statement, and let's see if we can come to certain conclusions. That's all for now. Take care.